in this house.
What it do, fight crew? Yo, back with another video. Just had a belly full of McDonald's and I'm ready to go. A friend told me that McDonald's breakfast was ass. I don't even see a problem with it. You know what? F you if you don't eat McDonald's breakfast. But anyway, the video we're doing today is I did the same shit last video. SKINAMARINK. That's the video we're doing today. The movie was made in 2022 and it was directed by Kyle Edward Ball. I mentioned this in my last video, which was a review on Barbarian. You should go watch that, by the way. I went to the movie theater with some friends and this was like one of the movies that I wanted to go see, but I was outvoted, so I just never got around to watching it after that. I want to give a big shout out to this movie because it made $1.5 million in its first week on a $15,000 budget. That's insane. I want to start this off by saying that this is a very unique horror experience. Like the way this movie was filmed, the concept of the movie, it wasn't really like a very plot driven type of movie. Like it was bits and pieces of plots, but it wasn't really like a something you can hold on to. The entirety of the movie has like this 1980 grain filter on it, and it reminded me of Paranormal Activity with the camera angles at some points, because it will go like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the low angle shots. It was tons and tons of low angle shots, which I have a theory on. I believe that most of the film, I could be wrong about this. This is my whole interpretation of it, which is most of this movie really, because everything's really ambiguous in this movie. But I think that the low angle shots are supposed to represent you looking from a child's point of view. Like I said, it's not a lot of explaining done in this movie for us. Like us as the audience has to interpret what's going on and what's happening in the movie, which I'm 100% not against. I think some movies should do that more. I feel like a lot of movies nowadays are explaining things way too much. Like I said earlier, this movie is very unique. It's not your normal horror film, and I have to commend whoever worked on this film, like everybody who worked on it, because this is something that's completely different from the rest of the horror genre that we've never seen before. When this movie first came out, it was tons and tons of like mixed reviews on this movie, because some people were saying it was the scariest thing ever and other people were saying it was the most boring thing ever, which I'll lean more on the boring side. This is not to say that the movie isn't a good movie, but I did have to like watch it in parts to make this video. The entirety of the movie, you're just staring at walls the entire time. Like it'll stare at a wall, cut to another wall, cut to another wall, cut to a dark room, cut to another dark room, cut to a shoe sitting on the floor, cut to a doll on the ceiling, and the cartoons. Oh my fucking god, those cartoons. The entirety of the movie is really just wall staring and basically watching cartoons with the main characters. Like I said earlier, a lot of things in this movie is up to our interpretation, and in my head, I'm thinking that the cartoons had some type of significant meaning to them, but I just couldn't figure it out. They showed it way too much for it not to be important in the movie. Also, this movie is extremely dark. Like I'm talking like I had to close my blinds and squint like a motherfucker to see this movie. It was so many dark spaces in this movie. Like this is definitely not a movie to watch during the day. They have this set as a horror movie, but me personally, I don't think it's horror. I think it's more a thriller if anything. This movie wasn't scary to me. It was more creepy and eerie. I wouldn't say scary is the right word to put on this movie. I think this movie plays a lot on being afraid of the dark, and if you're not gonna find this movie scary. If you were afraid of the dark as a kid, this might bring back some memories to you, but all in all, like it's not really a scary movie. It's more like a thriller. And that's my hypothesis on this movie and the mixed reviews on the first week. I believe that if you are afraid of the dark, or if you were very afraid of the dark as a child, you probably thought this movie was extremely scary. But if you didn't have any of that fear of the dark, you probably were the one of the people that find it like boring or probably couldn't sit through the entire movie. Okay, I've been talking about everything around the movie. Let's get into the movie, the meat and potatoes of the movie, if you will. So film synopsis, once again, always comes through with the descriptions. Two children wake up in the middle of the night to find their father is missing and all of the windows and doors in their home have vanished. Jesus Christ, even the fucking description is ambiguous. The main characters of the film are actually children, and they're a brother and sister named Kaylee and Kevin. I also want to mention that this description might be very short because not a lot happens in this movie. Like I said, there's a lot of wall staring, a lot of cuts to something else, to staring at it. Like it's not really much to say about this movie. Like I also said earlier, the movie isn't scary, it's more eerie and creepy, and you have to watch it to feel that. Like to see like the dark spaces that it shows, the walls that it's showing. Like you have to feel the creepiness of the movie to get it. Something I also want to mention is that we don't see anybody's full face in this movie. We always see like this low shot of their legs. So keep that in mind as well. So the movie starts off with the kids playing hide and seek, right? And it's like staring at like these stairs that are like really dark. And all we hear is Kyle counting to 3, and he fell down the stairs after he got to 3. Then at some point after that, they decide to go to sleep, and then they wake up at some point to like, I guess, go to school. They didn't say what they got up for, but Kaylee told Kyle that I think it's time to get up, so I'm thinking they have to go to school or something. They go to try to find their father and he's not in his bed, so they're a little confused, and they go downstairs just to watch cartoons and eat breakfast, I guess. Okay, so as they're watching cartoons, they hear like a sound, and they get up and go into the kitchen, and they see like a chair on the ceiling, and that's like the first occurrence that we get of anything happening. And this is like, I want to say like maybe 25 minutes into the movie. I'm going to fast forward a little bit here because, you know, like I said earlier, not a lot happens in this movie. It's a lot of just staring at shit. But later in the movie, a little bit later in the movie, like I want to say around the 35-minute mark, around there, 35 minute, we actually get to see another occurrence that actually was significant, which was whoever this entity is or monster that they're like in their house can actually get rid of the doors and windows. So I guess there's a little insight of what this thing can do. It can change reality as we know it. It also can like mimic voices as well, because later in the movie, it called Kaylee upstairs using her father's voice, so she went up there. Now this is where things get really interesting. This is when I kind of sat up in my seat with this movie, and this is like 40 minutes into the movie. She walks up to her father's room and she sees him like just sitting on the bed, and he told her, I need you to look under the bed, right? She looks under there, pitch black. She tells him she doesn't see anything. She looks again, pitch black, looks up at him, he's disappeared. She hears something, right? And the camera pans over very slowly. Now I'm thinking I'm about to get a jump scare right here, but it wasn't. It was just her mother sitting on the other side of the bed now. Her mother basically said that her and her father loves her very much and then tells her to close her eyes. After she opens them, it pans over into like this closet area that's really dark, but you can hear her mother's voice, so it's insinuating that she's in there. Is that something's with her in there. Also, I forgot to mention, you can tell when the monster or whatever the entity is, you can tell when it's like mimicking a voice because it becomes like a little distorted towards the end of like whatever it's saying. Anyways, we're staring at the closet, right? Then all of a sudden you hear like her mother groan a little bit and you hear like bones cracking. I'm assuming that the monster killed her while she was in there. And so after that, she pans back over to the bed and her father is back sitting there. And she basically tells her to go back downstairs. I ain't gonna lie, that whole section had me up. Like I was on the edge of my seat. Like 40-minute mark in the movie is where it got interesting for me. It might got interesting earlier for other people, but for me, that was it. The rest of the movie is the same thing. It's just, you know, staring at things, monster moving things where it's not supposed to be, Barbies on the roof, shit like that. I also like to specify once again, in my videos, I don't go into specific detail about every single thing that happened in a movie. I want to leave it open for y'all to go watch it yourselves. So there may be some details I'm leaving out, but that's on purpose because I want y'all to go watch it. I wouldn't do a review on a movie that I wouldn't recommend for someone to watch. Anyways, later in the movie, this text pops up that kind of makes my jaw drop a little bit. It said day 572, so they've been trapped in that house for 572 days. It also was revealed that this entity or whatever this thing is can actually manipulate time as well, because it was watching the cartoons at one point and it kept rewinding this one part over and over again, which like I said earlier, the cartoon has some significance, I just don't know what it is. It also was a part in the movie that's zoomed out of the house what it looked like. And it's like nothing around the house. The house is like in this empty space dimension that's like nothing else around it. So I'm thinking that not only can this freaking thing affect the reality inside the house, it can affect the reality outside of the house as well. And time outside and inside the house. So they made this thing like completely OP as fuck. Towards the end of the movie, this is once again, it's my own interpretation of what happened, or what's happening. But it seemed to me that at the end of the movie, it would show like the ceiling and it would just be a child screaming, the monster growling, and then there'll be a big ass blood splatter. And then the monster will reverse time so that it will happen over and over and over again. What I'm thinking is happening is that it's basically torturing the kids and like killing them over and over and over and over again. And that's SKINAMARINK, folks. I give this movie a 7 out of 10. I don't think this is a bad movie at all. I think there's creepy and eerie vibes of this movie. It wasn't scary to me. It depends on who you are. It'll really go either way. And I really like the whole like lead up to the audience interpretation type of style that this movie went with, because I like seeing the theories and shit and conspiracies that everybody's making up when I did research for this video. It reminds me a lot of the whole SCP and Five Nights at Freddy's type thing, like leading the audience to kind of go with their imagination and make their own synopsis of it. I feel like that's a really cool way to go about it. Also, by every metric, SKINAMARINK was a definite underdog. Like 15K budget, 1.5 million first week. Like, you don't see a lot of movies doing that, and like you can tell by watching it what the budget was, but the way they were so unique and creative with it is what got them to that point anyway. So shout out to everyone who worked on this film. Also, the director of this film started as a YouTuber who would make these scary videos based on comments left by his subscribers. Huh.